Just after having a couple days to look at the film, what kind of stands out to you about that Iowa State game? Obviously, you talked about the fight and the physicality you saw, but kind of what stands out from that one?
Well, I think a few things. That first of all stands out. I love it when we can play like that, and the officials. You play, when you play Iowa State, you play Houston, you play Kansas. Certain teams like it's just kind of a no harm, no foul type of game. And I thought we displayed a ton of physicality and aggression. And I loved how we got to the offensive glass. I think we had 16 or 17 offensive boards. But so that's a lot. But, you get those because you go consistently, and our effort was really, really good that way. I thought it was the best game that we've had guarding what we call guarding personnel. Like, okay, right, this guy does this really well, this guy does this really well, and then we try to guard those guys accordingly. And I thought we did a really, really good job with that. Obviously, at the end of the day, the biggest thing was turnovers and a little bit of our shot selection with a couple guys. But the turnovers were the biggest thing. I mean, I think our turnovers led to 25 points, direct points for them. And so really the main way they scored was, off of our turnovers. And then number 5 for them, who's a lethal guy. We maybe could have guarded him a little bit different. At the same time, I just thought we did a good job in the half court for the most part that night. So what's becoming crystal clear in the Big 12, and this league is different than the Pac-12, no doubt about it, especially the first 3 teams that we've seen. But it's very, very athletic on the perimeter, and teams really get into you, and we got to do a better job of taking care of the ball and valuing the ball. We've had 3 Big 12 games now. We did a good job against Texas Tech. They also create a lot of turnovers, but 2 of the 3 games we have not, and so we have to clean that up.
Just kind of building off of the fight that you saw out of your team, how do you make sure that, after a few losses have kind of built up, to be able to kind of keep that mental edge, to be able to, when you have, more winnable games moving forward, to be able to find that mental edge to be able to go over the top?
It's a great question. It's first of all, you got to have tough-minded guys. You have to be tough-minded coaches, right? Understand the process and understand getting better. It can snowball quickly. I remember when I was an assistant at Nebraska, and especially our first year, we weren't good. And even our second year, I think we started out like 2-5, but then we won like 10 out of 13 to get in the NCAA tournament. So, because it can be a little bit daunting at times when you see, you got this game, and then the next 3 games are, Houston, Kansas, and, whoever it might be, right? So, but you can't, I just don't think you can think like that. It's all, you got to be process oriented. Of course, you got to try to find ways to win. But, it's interesting. In this league, like, you can play, somebody said this, it might have been one of the announcers, but, like, you can be a really good team, or you can be a good team and playing well, and you can still lose 3 or 4 in a row. Just because the depth of this league, it's really, really good. And, I mean, look at Cincinnati. They're ranked, I said this in the postgame radio show, they're ranked, I think they're ranked 17th, 18th, I don't know, 16th, whatever it was, starting league play. And they've going into that game, they had lost 2 in a row, now 3 in a row. They're a really good team. And so it happens. And so the beauty of this thing is you get 20 games in 10 weeks with 0 breaks. So you really don't have a choice. Like, there is no choice, right? And as a coach, if you see guys that are, whatever mindset they are, obviously got to coach them up and try to make them better. But at the same time, there's certain guys that are fighters. There's naturally fighters, and they're going to compete no matter what, when the chips are down or when you're ahead. And we definitely have enough of those guys on this roster.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, who would you maybe like to see step up more, or maybe what areas would you like to see the team as a whole step up more?
That's all I think about right now. Honestly, it's a great question. Like, you're always, how can you make your team better? Who do we need? I think about personnel all the time, and typically I do that as a head coach, right? And who should be playing more? Who maybe should be playing less? Who brings this to the table? And we need more consistency up and down our roster, quite frankly. I don't know that I can say one, obviously I'd like to see Gabe shooting it better, right? and do a few other things better. Now I thought he was more his normal self the other night. Now, his numbers, I think it was 4 for 14, but I told him this during the game. You look yourself again. The way he was moving, the way he was playing, I thought he did some really good things. But quite frankly, I'd say everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I think Lawson's been very, very consistent. I think you know what you're going to get. It was very obvious the other night when Lawson was on the floor that we looked like a very good team when Lawson was on the floor. Of course, he's the one guy that he was +1 when he was on the floor the other night. Loved how he defended those posts. He had a great look to him. He had a real edge to him on whatever day it was. What day is it? So Tuesday. But I just think we need more and just more consistency. So like one day, we're going to get, what are we going to get out of this person every day? What are we going to get out of this guy every day? Sometimes it's a little bit of this and then a little bit of that, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so just trying to get consistency to know who exactly we should be playing the bulk of these minutes, and it can be tough. What comes first? Well, you just got to play them and they'll be consistent. Well, you got to demonstrate that, right? And you got to demonstrate time and time again, competitive greatness. And so we got to see that.
You mentioned the sheer number of games in a 10-week span. How important is it for your team to have that short memory to kind of just push what happened last game out of the mind and just focus on the opponent at hand?
You got to be able to move on. You can't live in the past. You got to be where your feet are. I know it's a cliche, but I've always said, like, win or lose, you can learn, right? And so it's common. Oh, you got to flush it. Well, yeah, no. I mean, I've never been a huge believer in, you just got to flush it. Like, you got to learn from it. You got to grow from it. You got to get something out of that, whether it's a loss, and we've had a few in a row here now, or when you win. Why did we win? You know what I mean? Why did we win this game? And so, our process, we always have to have one day off throughout the week. Yesterday was that one day off. And so we'll get together today. And in film, we always show both sides of the story. Like, these are, things that we did really, really well. And now let's continue to do that. These are some things we didn't do as well. Right? And we have to grow from that and learn from it. And then who can do it on a consistent basis? That's been one of the things with our team this year is, like, when we really hone in on certain things in practice, we usually get better with it. But now we have to learn how to sustain it. We have to be able to sustain things and keep pushing forward. After all, it is January 9th. And so you do have to have a short memory, though. We always say, you guys have heard this a million times, but NBA, next best action, that was a big theme for us going into Iowa State and during Iowa State, and keeping things simple. Sometimes we like to reinvent the wheel when it really just simple plays, fundamental plays, are what give you a chance to have, real sustained success. And so I thought we grew with that. This team is, when things are good, sometimes we can be like a little bit like, and it's like, act like you've been there and then make the next play. I forget what game it was. We make a great play. They come down, boom, boom, and score a layup because we're celebrating and not getting back on defense, right? Or like when you screw up, there's no time to hang your head. Got to go make the next play. And so we've been trying to talk about having short memories, but you still got to learn and grow from those things, good and bad.
Looking ahead to Saturday's matchup, what have you guys seen initially from scouting out?
Yeah, Oklahoma State, frenetic. Frenetic. They fly around. They play 10 guys. They are constantly subbing guys in. They play really, really hard. They're physical. They create a lot of turnovers. Their last game against Kansas State at home, it was a resounding win. They were up by 15-20 most of the game, but they created havoc and they created a lot of turnovers. I think they scored 25%, 30% of their scoring came off of turnovers, and so got to play physical. Got to really take care of the ball. Same thing we just started this press conference with. But they have a lot of guys. I think they're top 10 in the country in scoring off the bench. So they play a lot of guys in that 20, 25 minute mark. So we got to do a good job knowing their personnel and then we got to just keep growing and getting better. And I like the growth that we had from Texas Tech to the Iowa State game, and now we got to keep pushing that forward.
You've had a couple games now where Mike is the one kind of being your primary ball handler starting the game. You got Miro coming off the bench to kind of handle that. Kind of just how would you assess that at this point? How those two guys are handling it? How it's looking?
Well, I'm going to start with Miro. He's handled it really well. Of course, he wasn't happy, but he handled it very professionally. And I thought he's played better the last couple of games. He's clearly played better with more edge, more purpose, more gumption. And, in the Iowa State game, a little bit in the first half, but a decent amount in the second half. We played them both together like we had been early in the year for a while, right, when Mike and Miro were both starting. So they both bring a different kind of element of playmaking. I think I'm very confident playing them both together. And then Mike, some really good, some not so good. He is a very good playmaking guard. Like, he can really see the floor and make plays. Obviously, both those guys had too many turnovers, specifically against Iowa State. So we got to be able to handle pressure and get us into our offense more efficiently.
A little bit of the psychological makeup of your team. How do you go about figuring out what buttons to push and how to get the most out of these guys?
Yeah, I just think you got to be consistent every day. This is our standard. This is who we're going to be. And if you don't do it, it's going to be hard to play you at the end of the day, right? And so, but you're always, searching for an edge, being in the league, obviously 2 of the 3 games, so I don't want to overreact. And we have done a really good job all year of taking care of the ball as a whole. But certainly, 2 of the last 3 games we have not. And so now all of a sudden your red flag, goes up a little bit. So how do we get us in our best offense? I thought we really took a step forward defensively. But we have some versatility on this team. It is hard to play, 11 guys, obviously. So just got to really make some choices here in who's going to do these absolutes, right? Defend, rebound, take care of the ball, and make simple plays on offense.